A lot of you guys are doing a reset. That is amazing to be going into January thinking about your reset instead of thinking about a cut, because most people are going to be going into January thinking about a cut. Is there anything wrong with doing a cut in January? No, absolutely not. But I'm just saying, like, it just shows a lot of growth for those of you guys who are actually looking at it from that bigger picture perspective of resetting. So if you are someone who is either in the middle of a reset, maybe that's why you guys are asking questions about reset, because you're ready to cut in January and you're like, is my reset over yet? But if you're somebody who is actually looking at, okay, I'm either in the middle of reset, I'm going to start resetting, I'm thinking about resetting, how do I measure my progress? This I know I've probably touched on in some manner in multiple office hours, but it is such a common question that I really want to address how to measure progress, because that's essentially the main question that people are asking is, how do I measure my progress during a reset? Now, the reason why this question is so important is because if you don't know how to measure your progress, then again, we're going back to that feeling state that we were talking about before, where you're just like, I feel like my reset's over. I feel like I've reset for long enough. I feel fat, so I want to cut now. Like, everything's based on feeling. And we don't necessarily want to base it on feeling. And I know that's a lot harder, because not only is a reset like completely backwards from everything that you've done before, but it's also coming usually right on the heels of a lifetime of dieting. So it's not just that it's complete opposite, but it's like fresh in your memory opposite. Like, you just left 5 minutes ago where you were measuring progress based on the scale and what was happening there. And now you're moving into this phase where, like, you're suddenly supposed to like not measure your progress by the scale, or let the scale like just go up and up and up. Like, how much does it go up? I'm just supposed to accept weight gain and be happy with it. So like, it's such a night and day phase from dieting, and for it to come typically like right after dieting, because before you even start cutting, like, this is the thing that you would want to do, is make sure that you reset properly. And so many people tend to rush through their reset because of that, because of the fact that they don't know how to judge whether or not they've had progress. They don't know how to deal with the mindset factor, like how much stuff is going on mentally when you're increasing your calories and going against everything that you've ever thought and been taught about dieting. So it's really hard to grasp sometimes how it all works together. So I know we talked before about the three pillars of the Diet Rebel method, and one of those is the reset. So remember, there's the rewire, there's the rebuild, and then there's the reset. The rewire, that is the reason why I'm always pointing to that phase as far as how much it affects the other phase, because you have to first rewire everything that you're thinking in order to go through with these completely unorthodox phases, especially like the reset and the rebuild, before you're going back into fat loss, because you want to judge everything by how things look, right? So one of the questions that we got was saying, like, hey, I know I may gain weight on the scale, but will I still see a positive change on the outside? And she said, I know all the magic happens on the inside, of course, because that's what you heard me talk about before. But she says, but what will I actually see? Like, see with my eyes, what can I expect to look at in the mirror? So this, I feel like, is such a good question because of multiple things. Number one is it points to why we need the rewire in the first place. So yes, the reset is so, so important, but the rewire around the fact that the reset is not about fat loss. Like, it is in the grand scheme, but it's not a fat loss phase. So this can confuse a lot of people, because they know, like, okay, the whole point of resetting is I'm increasing my metabolism and like rebuilding muscle so that I can lose more fat. Like, because the so that I can lose more fat part is so big for us, it's hard to reconcile all of the things that are happening that are not you losing fat, that are not you getting smaller. So that's why that rewire part is so important, because first and foremost, if we don't understand that the reset is not a fat loss phase, then it gets very confusing, because you're like, I thought gaining more muscle would help me to lose more fat. I just feel like I'm just getting fatter. I thought that resetting my metabolism would I thought that eating more would reset my metabolism, and then my metabolism would be higher and I would lose more fat, that I could lose weight eating more. How come I'm not losing weight eating more? So it's a lot of times we hear those questions in the beginning, and it's if you're not someone who's already experienced with the reset, you don't really understand like how backwards some of the questions seem, because of the fact that if you're in a reset, it makes complete sense that you're not losing fat. But again, because of how we're thinking about it, or the whole point of us doing the reset is so that we can lose weight. So why would I do this thing that makes me gain weight? Why is the scale going up? So all of those questions can come up, but that's because we haven't detached from the fact that it's a completely different phase. So when we're looking for what we can see and we're saying like, okay, I know all the magic happens on the inside. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But what's happening on the outside? That is the rewire, because dieting had us always prioritizing the outside. We were always looking at the outside. Everything that we were doing was about what's happening on the outside. What's happening on the outside? I don't like how I look on the outside, so therefore I'm going to go do XYZ thing. I'm going to eat in this certain way. I'm going to remove these things from my diet. I'm going to work out harder. So that's why we would have these points in time where we look in the mirror, we're not happy with what we see on the outside, and we're willing to do anything to fix it, even if that anything is hurting us overall. And then because of the fact that things aren't changing fast enough, especially if you're somebody who's starting to embark upon a reset, that can be really frustrating and send you running in the other direction every time you look in the mirror and you're not seeing changes yet. But the important thing is that what's happening on the inside needs to be prioritized versus what's happening on the outside. If you fix the inside, then the outside is going to happen so much faster. The outside is going to be so much more productive. So you want to think about it from the perspective of a house that has termites. If you're looking at the house and you're like, it's starting to get wobbly, things are happening underneath, you have people go in your crawl space and they're like, this house is not going to last. And you're like, I just want to paint it though. I feel like this paint color, like I just can't stand the way it looks on the outside. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're like, these shutters need to be replaced. I really want a new roof. I want new windows. Like you're looking at all these other things and you're not addressing the stuff that's inside. So this happens a lot. So for instance, like my husband and I, like we flip houses. One of the things that we've learned from flipping houses, whether it's our own house or whether it's some of the houses that we purchase, is that like 90% of the money goes into stuff that nobody ever sees. So even though you go and you walk through a house and you're like, oh, you're so impressed by the parts that you can see, if all of the stuff underneath is not structurally sound, then that's all the things that are going to be flagged either before you purchase the house, or that you're just going to find out the hard way if you purchase a lemon and you just put whipped cream on garbage, because that is what's happening when you're just addressing the outside. There is so much more going on inside that you have to be willing to look at that. And even though it does hurt, it hurts. It hurts when you dump thousands and thousands of dollars into fixing an HVAC system and like you still need to repair the drywall and paint the drywall an actual color that feels satisfied. It's like, it's crazy that the actual satisfaction comes from the color on the walls, the flooring being put in, and little like fixtures being put on around the house, when those are like the smallest of the things that actually have to go on to fix that house. So if you find out that your home, your body has termite damage and it needs to be repaired, then it doesn't really matter what you see on the outside, if that makes sense. Like the outside might just be tinted while the rest of the stuff is going on, even though like it's an eyesore, it's ugly to look at. It's maybe embarrassing for your house to be tinted and everybody on the block like sees like, oh, obviously they had termites in that house, or there was some kind of infestation there that the whole house has to be like covered and worked on. Like that part is not going to be fun. And that's again why that rewire is so important, because to be able to stick with it throughout those hard parts, throughout the parts where it feels like there's no productivity happening. It feels embarrassing because other people are looking like, what's even happening? To, like, did she fall off? Why does she just seem getting like she's getting bigger, eat more to weigh more? Whatever the things are that people are saying, like those things are really hard to get through. But if you know that you are doing the work to fix the things that lie beneath, then after a while, once it's all said and done, the tent comes off. You can still fix the outside. It's not like it's a death sentence. You're not working on it forever. You're just fixing that foundation so that it's strong enough to withstand all the other things that you can do. And so that you're not just making something pretty on the outside and not fixing the inside. So, with that being said, I will discuss some of the things that you can look for to make sure that you are seeing some progress with your metabolism reset. So, some of the cues, and now some of these, most of these are still going to be on the inside, but I will tell you some things that you can look for, like measurable, actual things that you can see and track and know if progress is happening. So, one of the first ones that I would say is if muscle is being regained. So, this is one of those catch 22 things because of the fact that muscle gain you may not see, like you may or may not see, because it's dependent upon the length of your reset and how much body fat percentage you have to start with. So if you are recomping and your reset is for a long period of time and your body fat percentage is not that high, then during a reset, you may like see noticeable muscle gain. Now, if you have a higher body fat percentage, you may not see this muscle gain without a scan. That is why you'll hear a lot of times when I'm like interviewing my clients on YouTube or whatever, or when I'm talking to you guys or any of the ladies who've gone through the Diet Rebel method, we talk a lot about getting like DEXA scans or some type of body composition scan. The point of these scans is for this exact purpose. It's to really help to calm your mind when you're going through these phases. So if you're able to get a body fat scan where it tells you how much muscle you have, how much fat you have, your bone density, things like that, that is going to be probably the most satisfactory way to actually see what's happening. So again, I know that like when we're saying see on the outside, like you're probably talking about like actual physical changes, like what's going to happen, like am I going to like see my body shape changing? And so like I'm saying, like you may, but if that's all you're looking for, you might miss the bigger picture. So that's where the scan can really help, because of the fact that when you don't see anything else going on, but you're able to go and get that scan and know what's been happening the last whatever 4, 6, 12 weeks, however long it's been since your last scan, that can really help to calm your nerves a little bit when you're thinking nothing happened, when you're looking in the mirror and you're like, I literally don't see any changes. So it's like having somebody go into the house and say like, okay, we looked around and all the damage is fixed. Like you're probably not crawling under your house to see if the termite damage is fixed. But if somebody else is telling you it is, or they're bringing pictures back up and they're like, look, this was how it looked before. This is where the termites were kind of eating away at everything, that this is how unstable it was. And then they're showing you the after picture of like, this is how we like rebuilt everything and we put in new whatever joists, or I don't know what the terms are, but the things are is if they got replaced, they can show you and you can like rest assured, even though you're not literally crawling under there and your outside of your house still looks exactly the same, but it's going to give you that green light to go ahead like, okay, now you can go and whatever, replace the shutters and all the other things, all the other cosmetic things that you wanted to do on the exterior of the house. So if you're getting scans regularly, so I would say if you're planning, if your original plan maybe is to do like a shorter reset because mentally you don't know how long you could take, so you're only doing maybe like 12 weeks or something, I would just get a scan at the beginning and end of your reset. If you know that you're going to do a longer reset, maybe you're like, this might take me 6 months, 9 months, something like that, then I would still try to get one every like 12 weeks if you can. I know that it doesn't necessarily fit in everybody's budget, but again, we're talking about just how to reassure yourself. So know that that is going to be something of a decision maker for you, is that on one hand to say like, well, I can't do that, or I can't afford that, or there's no Dexas near me. Recognize that that is going to be one of your most like foolproof ways of knowing whether or not your reset is working. So if you can at all make it work, then I would absolutely try to do that. So if you can get it done every 12 weeks, that would be ideal because of the fact that you can be able to like assess whether or not there's something that needs to be changed, or again, just know that okay, things are happening and you'll be able to keep going in that direction or whatever. Maybe you're like, all right, that's plenty for now. So, and a lot of the places that do DEXA scans will also have RMR testing. If they have that, that is another way for you to physically see again. You're not going to see it on yourself, but you can see it on the paperwork, on the result that your resting metabolic rate has improved, has gone up. And so that is when you're looking at your EM2WL numbers, your like TDEE and your BMR, that's your BMR, that's your metabolic rate. That means that the amount of calories that you're burning just laying and resting has increased. That is the point of a metabolism reset, right? Is for your metabolism to increase. So an RMR test is another way of making sure that those changes are actually happening. So that is the number one reason why I would recommend the scan, because whether or not you will physically see muscle gain with your eyes versus whether or not you can actually have some type of visible proof that things are working in your favor, that's going to be a game changer for you. So seeing muscle regain is going to be the best way to know if you're making some measurable progress with your metabolism reset, because that is the goal of the reset. Typically, the reason why your metabolism has slowed down is because you've lost some muscle mass, and probably quite a bit of it. So if you start off with a goal of how much of that you would like to replace, then those scans can help you know if you're moving closer to that goal. If you don't have any goal of how much you would like to replace, the scan will at least let you know if it has increased since last time, if your metabolic rate has increased since last time, and then you can decide, do I want to keep going and increase it more, or am I just okay with that? So again, that's where having a goal will probably be beneficial, because at least you like know if you're making headway towards it. So muscle regain is number one. The number two, I would say that if you start increasing your calories and there's been some weight gain, has the weight gain stopped? If you're still gaining weight, then your metabolism has not reset yet. Because if your metabolism had set to this new level, then it would be burning calories. It would be burning all the calories that you're eating. So essentially, if you are gaining, then your metabolism has not hit that level yet. You are still technically eating more calories than your metabolism is capable of burning, because it hasn't increased yet. So that's one of the reasons why I typically recommend going pretty slow with your increases, because it does take a while for that to happen. But for you band-aid rippers that choose to just start eating all the calories right away, and there may be a little bit more of that weight gain that starts there, but once it stabilizes, that's also a good sign too, because of the fact that if you're eating a higher amount of calories than you were before and you're not gaining any weight, then that's a good sign that your metabolism has caught up to the new level. Remember, it's always going to upregulate or downregulate to meet the need. So the same way that when you're eating less and less and less and less and less, your metabolism slowed to catch up with what you were eating, it's going to catch up to the eating more. I know that is probably the scariest part, because people are like, am I just going to gain weight into infinity? No, you will not. Your metabolism will catch up. It's super smart and it knows what it's doing. So if you just allow it to, by remaining calm, working on the rewire during your reset, then that's going to be super beneficial, because then you're not constantly focused on what's happening on the outside. You're just fixing what's happening on the inside, and then you can switch your focus in the next phase. So muscle gain is going to be a big sign. Weight gain stopping is going to be another big sign. And then I would say, as far as some actual things that you can see, is changes in your hair, your skin, your nails. Because a lot of times when we've had years and years and years of under eating, we don't really realize how malnourished we are. So we start to think things like dry skin, brittle hair, brittle nails, and all those things are normal or common or results of aging or whatever the case may be. And most people don't realize that they can have full thick hair, that their nails can grow again, that their skin can glow again when they are actually eating enough food and enough nutrients. So seeing some improvement on the outside in those things would be something that I would look for, because that is typically something that you can actually see. Is you may notice that like my nails never grew and suddenly they are again. um, Another thing on that note that you may notice that is more of something that you can feel, so again, this is, we're going back to the inside, is your appetite and energy. So if those things have regulated, that's a good sign that you're making some progress in your reset. That's also a sign that more progress needs to be made if they aren't. So a lot of times people will hit that phase where they're like, I feel like I've been resetting forever, but like I'm still so hungry. I still cannot get enough food, or I'm really, really tired. If those things haven't panned out yet, if you're still super fatigued or super hungry, but you're eating what should be maintenance, a lot of times that is your body trying to tell you something. Because even if you're eating enough calories, we have to remember that again, all those years of dieting, and especially Western diets, you can be eating a lot of food and still be malnourished. So that's usually a sign that if you're eating enough calories, but you're still feeling super hungry or super tired, that could be the sign to start working on the macro and micronutrients of what you're eating. So I know in the beginning, a lot of times going from 14, 1,500 calories up to like 28, 2,900, 3,200 calories or something like that. Like it's just about eating the calories. Like how many calories can I fit into my face? I don't even want to worry about the macros right now. And that's highly recommended at first, because you just want to get your body used to eating that much food. But once you don't have a problem getting in the calories anymore, then I would switch your focus to your macronutrients and make sure you're hitting those. Because like I said, if you're going to have this length of time anyways, instead of focusing on like, is it over yet? Is it over yet? Is it over yet? Just make sure you're like ticking all the boxes of all the other stuff that needs to happen anyways. So check your macros. This is a good time to work on them while you're getting everything situated there, because once you move into cut, that's not the time to work on them. You want to already have your macros down before you reduce your calories. So taking that opportunity to fix and get your macros in order while you're still eating a lot of food is going to help you when you move into the phases where you start removing food again, because you want to be able to like nail your macros out of the gate. But like again, when we're talking about if there is extreme appetite, like you're really, really hungry, feel like out of control hunger still, and you've been eating at maintenance for quite a while, and you feel like I feel like I need to eat more than maintenance, like I'm so hungry, or you're super, super tired from the food that you're eating, a lot of times either the extreme hunger will scare people and they'll actually want to go back into a diet, which is really weird if that's our first reaction, right? Is like, I'm so hungry, I probably shouldn't be eating this much. Like, what? That's literally the opposite. If you're that hungry, your body is asking for food. That's what hunger is. It's your body saying, I need something. So resist that urge, even though it does come up, and I get it. It's just, we can't help it. We've been brainwashed, right? We think like, something's wrong with me, or I should punish myself for feeling this hungry by removing food. So if you start feeling that extreme hunger, or if you start, same thing, you start feeling that extreme fatigue, a lot of times that same mental battle can creep in of like, it's because I'm eating so much food. You start to think it's kind of like the like Thanksgiving coma thing, like I'm eating so much food that I'm so tired and drained all the time. Maybe the case, but may not, because like I say, if you're eating at maintenance levels and you're not necessarily gaining anymore, but you still feel really hungry, or maybe you are gaining because you still feel really hungry and you're like eating well over the nutrients. But if everything else is regulated, but your appetite and your energy isn't, or you're having these extreme cravings, now it's time to look at the micronutrients. There may be a deficiency or something that you're still very much malnourished in that you don't know about. And because of how extreme dieting can be, it's not uncommon for us to be deprived of certain nutrients, because when we're dieting, we're not always thinking about our health. Like we tell ourselves that we are, because we somehow think that dieting is healthy, or we're like, I'm getting healthier. And then like we slash important healthy things out of our diet. So this happens a lot. So if you're somebody who has gone on a lot of extreme diets, where maybe you've removed entire food groups from your diet, you removed dairy or gluten or wheat or things like that, and it's not because you had an actual allergy to them, what you want to do is double check. Like, so I'm not saying that you have to add these things back in. If you're just like, look, Kiki, you don't understand, I am lactose sensitive or gluten sensitive or whatever the case may be. If you have your sensitivities and you're owning those and that's all you, that's whatever. The point is, are you removing a nutrient that came along with that thing? It's not about the thing. So I know that like we all have our things that once you've like done it for a certain amount of time, mentally it's hard to add that thing back again. So if that's the case, like let's say you removed dairy and you're like, I feel great when I don't have dairy. When I do have dairy, like I get all these issues. I have acne or I have stomach issues or whatever the thing is. So you have all these things that come up when you have dairy. So you're like, nope, not doing it. I don't care about diet mentality. I'm not adding dairy back into my diet again. Cool. What does removing dairy from your diet remove nutrient wise? That's all I care about is where are you getting your calcium from now? Where are you getting that protein from now? Where are you getting your vitamin D from now? Where are you getting these essential nutrients that the dairy would have provided from now? I don't care if you get your calcium from almonds or spinach. The point is, are you getting them? So that is the main thing is when you're in this phase, there's so many things to look at and pay attention to that aren't, can I cut yet? Can I cut yet? Can I cut yet? Can I cut yet? Get all of these things under control and you'll be surprised how much time actually flies, because when you start actually like doing that detective work on that of realizing like, okay, when I removed dairy from my diet, I lowered my protein intake, I lowered my calcium intake, I lowered my, whatever the things were. And then you start getting creative with how to add those micronutrients back into your diet again. And the same thing, maybe you stopped eating meats or certain types of meats or something like that. And you want to look at, okay, how am I going to get these essential things again? So maybe you stopped eating a certain type of meat that had a certain type of omegas to it. Is there something else somewhere else where you can still get those same omegas? If you're not getting vitamin E from your diet, how can you add vitamin E? If you removed wheat from your diet, was that your main source of fiber before? So it's just little things like that, that if you take the time to look at, okay, what was the essential nutrient along with that thing? Now, where can I look to get that nutrient and add it back in? It's not about the food. It's about the nutrient that is missing. And when you solve for that, you will likely figure out why you're having these extreme swings in your hunger, energy, and cravings. So those three things are always going to help point to a bigger problem that usually something is going on, like hormonally or something like that. So like when your leptin is off the chain and you just like have nonstop hunger, you want to find out, you want to solve for like, okay, what is triggering this? And typically it's going to be something like that. And when you figure out your micronutrient issue, like if you got all that down, you've nailed your calories, you've got your macros down, you've got your micros down, like so much time has passed, your weight is stabilized, you're getting your scans, your muscle has been rebuilt, you're not like, everything's good. Then it's going to be like, all right, it's time to cut. And you know what you're probably going to say to me? Kiki, no, I miss food. I don't want to lower my calories. I like eating this so much, because 9 times out of 10, that's what happens is when it is finally time to cut, there's so much resistance around it to the person who is fully healed, because of the fact that they've taken the time to now rewire and look at this bigger picture and realize that when I start removing things, I have to figure out how to keep the essential parts of those in my diet still, and or deal with the repercussions of removing them. So you start getting addicted to making sure that your calories are high enough. You start getting addicted to making sure that you're not losing muscle mass, because that's one of the biggest things, is that a lot of times when we aren't paying attention to that, or just like, what's the scale doing? What's the scale doing? What's the scale doing? My clients are so hilarious, because when they get their scans, that is one of the first things that they say. Like they are emailing me like, oh no, my muscle went down 0.001%. Like they are like so dedicated to keeping their muscle. They don't want to see it move at all. They will like be in a cut phase. And if their muscle mass like increases and the scale doesn't go down, like they're happy. And I'm like, so you're cool that there was no weight lost over this time period? And they're like, yeah, but did you see my muscle? Like they are so addicted to that because they know that they see all of the other things coming into play. They see that having that muscle mass is there. They see what their bone density is doing on those scans. They see that their body is actually working to rebuild these things. And then they start seeing that body fat percentage go down. And they realize that, yes, when you fix that damage that you couldn't see, it changes all the things that you can see. And that's when you start seeing those changes in the body recomp. That's when you start losing the fat layer that is covering the muscle so that you can see that muscle mass. So that's something that I would definitely say when we're looking at those main things that come into play is your muscle, your weight, that it's actually stopped, your hair, skin, and nails getting better, your appetite and energy being regulated, and strength gains would be the last and final piece to that puzzle, is that you've been seeing consistent strength gains in the gym. That typically goes hand in hand with increasing calories. It's one of those things that we typically tend to forget about or not think about, because how you perform in the gym is just kind of how you perform, and you just think that that's just the way it's supposed to be. But as you start actually like increasing your food and going to the gym and pushing yourself, and then you start realizing like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how strong I am. That is like my favorite part of eating more. That is my favorite part of like bulk phases and stuff, is how freaking beast I am in the gym. And when you can get to that point, that's the reason why you'll see why a lot of women, once they're used to the food, don't actually want to remove it, because they hate getting weaker. They hate the possibility of getting weaker from lowering their food. So that's one of the biggest things that I would say, is making sure that you're getting those strength gains. So those 5, 6 things, I don't even know how many it was, however many things I just named, those are all the benefits. Those are all of your metabolism reset progress cues to look for. So hopefully that helped you to get an idea of what you can see. I know that, again, when you said see, you probably were meaning like, I want to wake up, look in the mirror, and see something. But there's just so many more things. So when you open your eyes to the bigger picture, you'll see tons of progress everywhere you look. And that'll be motivation to just keep going. I know it is so hard mentally to sit through a reset and feel like, what if I'm just going backwards? But if you're looking at all of the things that I just mentioned, what you'll realize is that you're not actually sitting through it. You're being very active in this process of resetting your metabolism, which I mentioned in the Metabolism Reset 101 video that I did over on YouTube. If you guys haven't seen that, make sure you check it out, because that's where I talk about like this concept of the fact that the metabolism reset is something that is happening whether you're an active participant in it or not. Every single time that you diet and stop dieting, your body is attempting to reset, whether you are helping the process along or not. And because of the fact that most of us don't know that and we aren't helping the process along, we end up gaining more fat in between those diets than actually helping along this process and getting all the benefits that we talked about here today. So if you haven't already watched that, go check out that replay. It was a full class, probably about an hour and some change. So you want to like get a cup of coffee and a pen when you curl up with that one, or listen to it like a podcast while you're cleaning, because it's definitely going to drop a lot of hints and tips and tricks to help you in your metabolism reset journey. So again, I'm so excited for you guys that are doing resets. Keep those questions coming.